Okay, perfect. I think today's topic is very timely, and I think it's important for people who have missed this meeting to go ahead and review it afterwards. All right, today's agenda, we're going to welcome any guests and visiting Rotarians. We're also going to share some good news. Who has some good news to share? And upcoming events for our club, our weekly recap, and then, of course, our special speaker, Dr. Diane Birnbaumer, who is back for a second time visiting our club. I know she was very popular the first time she was here. So, visiting guests and Rotarians. Scott, do we have anybody? That's a visiting Rotarian here. If you are a visiting Rotarian or guest, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Christina. I'm the president of USF's Rotaract Club.
Welcome, Christina. And you will be hearing from Christina a little bit later. Any other visiting Rotarians or guests? Looks like we are covered for today. Okay. And many thanks to our volunteers. We only have one volunteer today, which is Scott Plakin, who is my Zoom co-host. So thank you, Scott.
Anytime.
Quote of the day. And Anita, would you like to read our quote?
I'd love to read the quote. Surround yourself with only people who are going to lift you higher. Oprah Winfrey.
All right. And what does that mean to you?
To me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, listen, negative people can bring you down like crazy. And positive people can really lift your spirits and make you feel good, even if there are things that are going wrong. And personally, for me, in the challenge that I went through with my surgery on my back and everything, everybody who participated in lifting me up ended up lifting my spirits, taking me out of my pain, and it was wonderful.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Anita, for sharing that. All right, I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Hopefully everybody had a great day, either you as a mom with your children or your pets, because you guys are mommies too, or celebrating your own mother. So hopefully everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day. Some of our upcoming events, district conference. This is coming up, it's this Saturday. So not sure what's going to be happening with some of the people that I hear had COVID. So maybe we'll hear a little bit more about this later from people who are in the know on this. But if you have not purchased your ticket, Rhonda, are you on? I believe you might still be able to purchase your ticket if you would like to attend the district conference. And this is a celebration of fun and celebrating our club. Our club will be receiving many district awards. So you want to be there to help celebrate with us. And if you are not able to attend, I will come back the following week to share all of our awards and some photos. We do have a service project coming up on May 16th from 4 to 5:30. The ARC San Francisco, they're always looking for volunteers, drivers to pick up the meals and then to deliver to their clients. So please be sure, if you've never done this before, it's nice to do it in a pair. Somebody drives in and then double park and then you drop off the meal. It's a very simple project, but it is much needed. Go ahead and register at sfrotary.com. Next week, we have the in-person meeting over at the Hotel Nico, and our special speaker is Janet Kessler. She will be talking about how the coyotes here in San Francisco, I know I've seen them roaming around the streets, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen them roaming around the streets, but how do we get along with them, especially if we have pets? And she is the expert in the coyotes here in San Francisco. She's been studying this for many years. So it'll be an interesting topic. And then also for the brand new members and existing members, if you'd like to have a cozy conversation with me to learn more about Rotary or what is coming up with the new year, please join me from 1 o'clock to 2:30 on May 19th. This is over at the Phil's Coffee over on Ocean Avenue near City College. It's a great chance to be able to just sit down and really learn about how you can participate more actively within our club, what's available in our club, what's available in the district level, and what's available in the international level. So come on and have coffee and conversation with me. Then following that, May 24th, we are also live, and our meeting special speaker is Diane Stark. Diane will be talking about the San Francisco Marin Food Bank and its current challenges and its current goals. And of course, my year is all about having fun, and this will be a very fun adventure. And we are looking for a few more participants to go, and we are going to the escape room in San Francisco. If you've never done this before, it is so much fun. If you love puzzles, you will love this interactive game. And we have 1 hour once we're locked in the room to try to escape. So please be sure to sign up. This is happening in a few weeks. Also, this is a brand new project. You know that we've been distributing the safety alarms for Asian seniors. And this one is happening Saturday, May 28th and June 18th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is going to be in Oakland this time. We are collaborating with the San Francisco Rotary Club of Chinatown, the Rotary Club of Oakland, the Oakland Chinese Chamber of Commerce, the Police Department in Oakland, and the FBI Task Force. And they will all be there to distribute 300 alarms each one of these days. So we do need some volunteers to support the distribution of these alarms. This will be available for sign up starting tomorrow. And then we also want to save the date. For those of you going to Houston, Texas, please be sure to email me, let me know, or put it in the chat that you are going to conference so that we can be sure to connect when we're there. And I'd also like to be able to purchase some t-shirts so that we can be gathered together representing our club. So email me, let me know what size you are, and then also that you are going, okay? And also save the date for June 11th, Saturday, picnic in the park. Sunny, would you like to share about what this event is?
Thank you, Mary. Yes, we're having our year-end picnic on June 11th. We're celebrating Mary Lou's year as our president. So we're truly grateful for everything she's done for us this year. It's a potluck-style barbecue. We will be, as a club, barbecuing sausages and burgers, and we'll have drinks there, wine and beer, and then there will be a potluck sign-up. It's going to be a fun, open-ended event. Please register. It's already on our club calendar, and there's easy parking close to JFK Drive from this part of the Hellman Harbor Park picnic area, tables 1 through 4. It's going to be very easy for you to get there. So please register as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for organizing this picnic. It should be a lot of fun. You are welcome to bring your little pets to this one. It is dog friendly. So Margaret, I'm looking forward to seeing your little foster doggy. All right, weekly.
I'm out of town, sorry.
Okay, weekly recap. We do have not much going on right now as far as service projects in the last week, but we do have Christina Coet. Christina, I am butchering up your last name, sorry. Christina is the president of USF Rotaract, and she will be sharing what the Rotary Club did during this past week. So Christina, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and share what you guys did?
Yes, thank you for having me. So so last week, the Nursing Society, the Women Nursing Society at our school hosted this fashion show, which was a huge event to raise money for breast cancer prevention partners. And so Rotary came to help support the fashion show and actually walk in the fashion show. So we wore all of our different Rotary t-shirts from different service events we've helped out with, and our own Rotary t-shirts. And we walked in the fashion show to kind of promote our club to the school and also just kind of help support the event in general.
What a great idea. I love that you guys have these various different shirts with the polio plus, and also just another one where it says Rotary. Love it.
Yeah, and we also had some of the Earth Day, the Green Earth Day shirts as well.
Mhm. And here are some additional photos from there. Let me just run through that. Here they are walking through the catwalk there. They're really getting, you guys look like you were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, we really got into it, and I think the crowd liked it.
Look at that. Nice. Okay, and what's this?
And then last Friday, we hosted a food drive at our school. Every semester, students have a designated amount of money put into their meal plan. And it is a lot. And a lot of times students find themselves with extra money at the end of the semester. So we encourage students to use that money to buy non-perishable foods from our on-school stores, and then donate that food. And it was kind of a win-win, because not only did we get to collect this food to donate, which we ended up donating to the Jewish Family and Community Services, but not only did we get to collect that food to donate, but people got to use their money in a meaningful way, where a lot of times that money just ends up going to waste.
And where did you guys donate the food to?
To the Jewish Family and Community Services.
Oh, very nice. So if you don't use the allotment, you lose it. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, what a great idea then.
Yeah, it was a great way. Some people had lots of money left over, so they just gave a lot of food supplies.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And here you guys are in the front with your sign up. Did you get a lot of people donating the food?
We got a good amount. We filled up about 3 of those boxes right there. And I think a lot of times it wasn't a huge amount of people, but it was the people that donated a lot.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is this something that will be ongoing?
That's the feedback we got. We're done for the rest of the semester because our semester is almost over, but we did get a lot of feedback of people asking when we would be back and when we're doing it again. So we're definitely going to plan multiple dates next year, next semester, because then I think people, when they know it's coming, they'll be more prepared or can bring stuff from their apartments, because not everyone lives on campus. So it definitely was a success and people seem to love it.
Very nice. And how many members do you have in your Rotary club right now?
I think we have about 10 solid active members. And this was our first year really after restarting the club and coming back. So the fashion show was a great way to advertise to our school to get more members. And yeah.
Well, I know that you guys are bringing it back, and a lot of it I would think has to do with you since you're the president of the club. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, all the officers of our club work really well together. So it's been a great year working with them.
Nice. All right, here's some of the donated items. A lot of cereal.
Yeah.
And what's this?
I am not sure.
You mentioned something about you're going to be donating the stress balls.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot about that. So actually right now outside of on campus, we're handing out candy, little stress balls, and stickers with like motivational stickers on it. So I see that. And so that's actually happening right now. And we have our Rotaract sign up so people know who it is. But we're just handing out for free because right now it's finals week. So everyone's super stressed on campus and very tense. So it's just a great way to give back to our students.
Oh, nice. And on this one, you guys just notice your peers being stressed and that you wanted to find some kind of solution. Is that how your club came about this idea?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, we definitely notice. You can just feel the tension on campus. So we wanted to kind of brighten up the week because sometimes it just feels super tense when everyone's walking around all stressed out. So we wanted to just help people out, make them happier.
Yeah. So I love that you're doing that and at the same time promoting Rotaract so that the club can grow next year. Great idea. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Christina? Go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself.
I
No,
just want to
David.
say excellent.
Dan.
Say, how long has your club been in existence?
So USF used to have a Rotaract club, but it disbanded a few years ago before I came to the school. And then last spring semester, a few of us wanted to restart the club. So really this has just been our first year with like the new members and kind of starting from scratch because all the old members have already graduated and yeah.
So it sounds like you're doing very well this year from what we're hearing, and much encouragement to you for that.
Absolutely. And David, you're one of the advisors over there, aren't you?
Yes, we are co-sponsoring USF with the Chinatown Club, where Vanita Louie also has provided support in the operation of this club. But they're doing a great job, and for really about a year now, they have done a lot of partnering, with district Rotary things as well as local things. They helped pick up in Chinatown. He did that street cleanup thing. And of course, you were at the district assembly. You helped out, volunteered at the Rotary Race to End Polio. And you were at the Protecting the Environment event in April. So they've been very busy and very engaged. And we hope to connect them more with Rotarians in the coming year.
Yay. All right, let's give Christina and the USF Rotaract Club a big round of applause. And thank you, David, for your advisement to making this club a success. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and let's go ahead and share your good news. 20 seconds for $20. Who has good news to share right now? Anybody have good news? Dan.
Well, I just can't stay away from this microphone. Nothing new there. But just wanted to relay that Bob and I had a wonderful time in our vacation in Switzerland and then on the Rotary cruise of the Rhone River in France, the south of France, the Provence. So beautiful. We have never been in the south of France, only in Paris. So it was quite the deal. We also had great success in raising funds on the ship. It was an objective to have funds raised for Polio Plus, and we raised about $76,500 with several gifts from our District 5150. It was very gratifying. Now, listen, I'll just sneak in two more items. We have our beautiful rental property at 690 Miramar for rent in Westwood Park. Give me a ring if you want any details, or Bob. And lastly, we're going off to a family wedding in Spokane for a little bit of time with our family. It should be great fun. Thank you.
Yay. I have some good news to share. Now that my year is almost ending, I can start planning my vacation. And one thing on my bucket list, I was doing my living will, and I said to my kids, when I pass, I want to be cremated, and I want my ashes to be thrown over the waters of Bora Bora. And then I took a moment when I was talking to my kids about it, and then I thought, why would I wait till I'm dead before I go to Bora Bora? I have planned my Bora Bora trip coming in October. I get to see it myself.
You may change your mind. You may want to go somewhere else.
That's my good news. All right, let's go to John Mathers.
Yes, I had a wonderful time in Italy, came back and immediately got into my electric vehicle and drove up to a district conference with 300 people where I did the keynote on a lifestyle. And it was very interesting and wonderful reception. And then a presentation in Eugene. I was very impressed with their dedication to doing something about climate. And I didn't use a lot of carbon to do it.
Nice.
So I was very pleased.
Which electric vehicle did you end up purchasing?
I have a VW ID4.
IV4?
ID as
ID4,
yeah.
VW. Is that a four-wheel drive too?
You can get it in four-wheel drive, but I don't need that.
Ah, nice. Nice. All right. I think I saw John Hope. Was your hand up?
Yes. Well, my wife and I are leaving this weekend to go down to Palm Springs to celebrate her uncle's 90th birthday. And so it'll be her family gathering. I'm part of the family now, I guess. And so looking forward to that. And lastly, a few weeks ago when Scott and Susan did their presentation on SADAR, I told a story about a friend of mine, a neighborhood friend of mine who was Jewish, and I was not, but his grandfather invited me over to their dinner. And unbeknownst, out of the blue, seriously, I get a message from him. And I haven't seen him since our childhood days. It's been over 50 years since high school, and we've reconnected. He connected with me, and this was like, it still gives me goosebumps to this day. I said, his ears must have been burning when he heard me tell that story. But that's my happy story.
Oh, nice. It's always nice to connect with people you haven't seen in a long time. Yay. Okay, Bob Herman, I think I saw your hand up.
Oh, I was actually clapping for that story.
Oh, okay. All right. Anybody else?
I think Ann Dougherty's got her hand up.
Oh, Ann. Thank you, Bob.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that I've returned safely from a beautiful trip through Israel and the Holy Lands, and I'm sponsored by the Jerusalem Peace Builders, and paid a visit to the St. John Eye Hospital there, and it was just an extraordinary trip. And I'm hoping that maybe we can organize some Rotary events or similar trips down the road. So I guess I'm looking to be on the international committee pretty soon.
I would love to go with you, Ann. I think I mentioned that to you before you took off on your trip, and welcome back.
Yeah.
And I would love to go with you to Israel too. So.
All right.
Oh, sounds like a group trip.
And Jerusalem Peace Builders wants to be there. So they've been trying to get involved with Rotary for years. So here we go. Let's get ready. All right.
Well, let's do something together about that. All right.
Yeah.
Any other good news? No, I think that's good. Thank you for sharing, everybody. All right. Do we have time for table talk? We do. We have time for table talk. I am going to split everybody up into, I'm going to stop screen share for a minute. I'm also going to hold the recording. Scott, you want to go ahead and introduce our special speaker?
Sure. Board certified in internal and emergency medicine, Dr. Diane Birnbaumer is Emeritus Professor of Medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine, UCLA. Currently a Senior Clinical Educator in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Harbor-UCLA Medical Center in Torrance. Dr. Diane has given over 2,500 lectures in her career. She's received the American College of Emergency Physicians Outstanding Speaker of the Year Award, the Outstanding Contribution to Education Award, and the Lifetime Education Award at Harbor-UCLA's Department of Emergency Medicine. More important, she got rave reviews for her presentation to us in March 2021, when she talked to our club about what were then the brand new vaccines that were going to take care of COVID once and for all. Oh well. Today, she'll update us on what's been happening with COVID since then and what might be happening next. Diane, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's so, I'm sorry, I can't see you, as I can see you, but I can't be with you. But thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. And we were chatting a little bit before this meeting started about how it would be really nice if we could just quit talking about this silly thing, but it's not going to go away. So I think the best thing is to arm yourself with information, hopefully real information, and decide where to go from there. And we were clearly, it's in everyone's lives. Everyone knows people who are testing positive, people who are home. I didn't hear anybody mention, though, anybody in the hospital or anybody dying right now of COVID. And I think that's an important difference between now and when we last spoke. So let's sort of see where we are. So I've shared my screen. Hopefully you all can see it. If you can't, somebody pipe up and let me know. And I know I have, let me see, 25 minutes or so. Hang on, I'm going to set my timer here. Okay, let's go. I know I have 25 minutes and I will stay here as long as anyone has questions. So if you want to hang out and ask a million questions, I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my knowledge. So here we are. So we are literally 26 months from when this started. So 26 months ago, just a couple of days, or tomorrow actually, this thing was declared a worldwide pandemic. And I'm not sure we really knew what we were in for. It has been an amazingly crazy time in so many ways. We had a lot of opportunity to learn about ourselves and about our country and about the world and how we deal with these kinds of gigantic events. And it's been a sort of hit and miss kind of deal over the last 26 months. So I'm going to talk to you about where we stand now in the United States. With this pandemic and sort of what you can factor into your life, maybe going forward for the foreseeable future. And that's sort of where we're going to focus on this. And again, absolutely all the questions I can possibly answer at the end, I will. It is a dizzying time now. We've been through, variants and now medicines into, vaccines and how many vaccines and which vaccine. And it just has been completely insane. And tests that we couldn't do at home that we can now do at home, and quarantine and isolation that has changed. And it has just been a crazy, crazy time. And apparently, as a country, what we have decided, both sort of by policy and by how we've adopted and adapted to this thing, that we are kind of on our own here, that individual choices have become paramount. And that means that you need to make your own individual choices, know that people around you are doing the same, and factor that into how you go forward. And I was encouraged to hear that many of you are traveling. That's wonderful. I think knowing sort of what you're getting into when you travel and doing it intelligently is absolutely fine. I've got travel on my schedule coming up. I have ways I'm going to approach this stuff. And it's just a matter of kind of knowing the playing field. And that's sort of where we are now. So let's start out with all of this. Let's start with the vaccines. And whether they're working or not. And I will tell you flat out, without question, these vaccines are working, without question. And I want to back up just a little bit and talk about what was meant to happen from these vaccines. So when COVID first came out, we knew it was a coronavirus, and we knew that coronaviruses could do anything from a common cold. They cause a lot of common colds right now, to the original SARS, which killed 1 in 10 people who got it, to MERS, the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, which killed 1 in 3 people who got it, to this new thing. It was like, what is this thing? We had no idea if people were going to get sick at 10 o'clock in the morning and be dead by 6 o'clock at night, like happened with the pandemic flu in 1918, or if this was going to be mild like a cold. We just didn't know. And that was the whole point of locking down initially. When we found that this really did kill about 1 in 100 people who got it, about a 1% to 2% fatality rate overall, that was really important to tackle. And it got 1 in 10 10 people ended up in the hospital. So you are actually even 2 in 10 people ended up in the hospital. So you end up with a lot of people inundating hospitals. The goal of the vaccine when it was first developed was to basically keep people out of the hospital and keep people from dying. And it has been successful in spades. Absolutely extraordinary data on this. If you are vaccinated, and particularly if you're vaccinated boosted, but honestly just vaccinated boosted times 1, you actually are really, really great, especially compared to somebody who's unvaccinated. These are absolutely working. And one of the things I've been hearing, I have a neighbor who's a big naysayer on all of this, who basically came up and said to me the other day, well, you know, more people are vaccinated or dying in New Hampshire or Vermont or somewhere, whatever. She said, are more vaccinated people are dying than unvaccinated. To which I posited, that may very well be true, but let me give you an extreme. If everyone is vaccinated, if 100% of people are vaccinated in an area, 100% of people who die will be vaccinated. This is not meant to completely be a get out of jail free card. Most of the time it is great, but the more people who have vaccinated, some people will get breakthroughs and super sick, not often, but may. We're going to have more and more vaccinated people actually going on to die. This is not something that's 100% preventive, but look at this chart. This thing is incredibly successful. And those of us who work in hospitals will tell you this was an absolute game changer and is. As each new wave comes through, vaccinations have been extraordinarily helpful in what we do at our end of the hospital. We know that hospitals that get overwhelmed, we can't even see strokes and heart attacks when it's completely crazy. This has really helped take a lot of the load off hospitals, even during pretty big surges. So this has been a game changer, no question about it. Is it simple, this whole vaccine thing? Not at all. It started out with the wild type, one virus we'd never seen before, and one type of vaccine that was initially available, and really fast, by the way, truly miraculously available. But lots of history to that, 10 or 20 years of research to develop vaccines that quickly. But now we have all kinds of combinations and permutations, right? We have people who've never been vaccinated, never got infected. Some people with 1 dose, 2 dose, dosed and boosted who've never been infected. Somebody who's gotten infected and gotten vaccinated. People who've been vaccinated and boosted who've gotten, it's crazy. We have all these combinations and permutations out there. And depending where this happened in the sort of system here, which vaccine did they get? J&J, one of the mRNA vaccines, and when were they sick? Which variant was it? Each of these combinations and permutations is different. So literally, I will tell you, data from last summer may be completely inapplicable now. Because the viral type, we had Alpha last summer, we had Delta last fall, last winter we had Omicron. All of those are different. So it's frustrating for people who aren't science oriented to try to absorb this information. And I will tell you, even those of us who are science oriented, this is overwhelming data. And it makes it really hard to interpret. I think going back to that, just simplify what's the end result here. It is absolutely clear that being vaccinated is a much better place to be if you don't want to die, you don't want to end up in the hospital, than being unvaccinated is. So that's sort of the bottom line playing field. Complicated, people will be able to cherry pick data depending when they want to pick it. Make sure it applies to now. Make sure that the data they're talking about applies to where we are right now, which is this new variant of Omicron and current vaccines the way they are. And current vaccines the way they are, what is considered up to date on your vaccination is 2+ a booster. So that is now what's now termed up to date on your vaccinations. The question for a lot of people, if you're of a certain age or you work in sort of healthcare or you are somebody who has high risk conditions, is should you get a 4th dose of this thing? I will tell you, my husband and I just got our 4th doses 2 days ago. Hit me harder than any of the other doses have so far. I even have a big gigantic lymph node under my arm at the moment, which I'm happy about, to be honest, because my immune system is going crazy and I'm delighted with that. But should you get a 4th dose, it is really honestly up to you. You do get a little bit of benefit. There is some increased benefit from it, but I'll tell you, the first 3 doses are the kicker here. The first 3 doses really will put you in you're pretty good to go as far as if you do get a quote breakthrough infection, that you will do okay with this thing. So 4th dose, kind of up to you, know the categories that apply. Now, some people will tell me, and this is my neighbor that loves to come over and needle me all the time, said, what about natural immunity? I've had COVID, I'm good to go. And I will tell you what's turning out to be interesting is that yes, there is some natural immunity from having it previously to before, depending when you had it before. Alpha wasn't really that protective for Delta. Delta hasn't been all that protective for Omicron. Omicron seems to have some protection for the next Omicron, but not perfect. So natural immunity certainly has some effect. And I think part of the reason right now we're not seeing hospitalizations and deaths go sky high yet is that we have a pretty big background of more than 50% of the United States got infected with the first Omicron wave. So there is some background immunity there, which is wonderful. How lasting it will be, we have no idea, absolutely no idea. But I'll tell you right now, what we know is that the best combo as far as the get out of jail free card is if you have been infected and you've been vaccinated. Now, that is not to say if you're vaccinated, go out and get infected. Getting infected raises the risk of long COVID, and getting infected is not an easy, oh, it's no big deal infection. You can still get pretty sick, even vaccinated with this thing, home with fevers and aches and home for days. And I mean, who wants it? But the reality is if you were someone who picked it up in the past and you've had your vaccine, you're probably as bulletproof as you'll get so far as anything terrible happening to you when you pick up this, if you pick this up. Are the odds are that you're going to pick this thing up? I think if you live a life that is out in the public, at some point you will be exposed to this, and there's a possibility. And the key here is to keep yourself as protected as possible. So that's sort of the deal about immunity. How about testing? So testing initially, there wasn't enough. We couldn't even get enough people tested. Contact tracing was a nightmare. I mean, the whole thing initially was a crazy nightmare. Well, now, as far as testing is concerned, we have these home tests. By the way, you can order these on an ongoing basis from the feds for free. They'll mail 4 to you. Just go to the website. You can get 4 for free from the feds if you want. They're in stock at most of our grocery stores now. They haven't been completely emptied out like they were for a while. So what about these things? So these antigen tests at home, by the way, I have a couple in my suitcase. I have a couple at my daughter's house. We have a couple here. We have them kind of all over the place. These things are extremely helpful, the ones you can do at home. The problem is we don't track them. So as far as keeping track of numbers of how much is out there in the real world, we can follow certain numbers, but we have no idea. Think about it. I mean, how many people do you know who've had this, tested positive at home, and never reported it? You can. Probably would be great if we were supposed to, but most of us don't. So how do you use these things? A couple of things I want to tell you about these tests, because I hear all kinds of crazy stuff about these. First of all, if you use them the way they're designed. So some people will say, oh, I read online, I read on social media or Twitter or whatever, to swab my throat first and then swab my nose and it'll help. Don't. Do these things the way they were designed. You can mess up the test results by trying to jimmy it around. These are nasal swabs. Do them nasally exactly as it says on the instructions. Do it exactly. Pretend it's a pregnancy test and you want to know if you're pregnant or not. It's the same thing. Do it exactly as is on the container as it tells you what to do. The other thing to know about these antigen tests, and people don't want to hear this, but this is real, is if your antigen test is positive, you're likely infectious. And people who get this current round of COVID are testing positive, not just for 5 days or 6 days, it's 7 days, 10 days, even 14 days. I have a friend of a friend right now who's on day 11 and still testing positive. Feels like a rose. Symptoms are all gone, but still testing positive. You should consider yourself still infectious if those nasal tests are positive. Those antigen tests that you can do at home are positive. It correlates better than even a PCR test as far as being infectious to someone else. How you adapt your behavior based on that is kind of up to you, but I strongly, 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 strongly urge you to continue to wear masks around anybody else if you are testing positive for this from an antigen test. It just correlates with infectivity. It correlates with intact virus and viral load as well, how much you're actually shedding. So I highly recommend, if this thing is positive, to consider it truly positive for you. Now, how about quarantine and isolation? I will tell you, this is such a crazy, ridiculous mess that I just want to tear my hair out. So to me, you can go to the CDC website, and I think they tried to be real about this and what people were willing to do, be a little bit science-based about this and trying to keep people from infecting each other. There was also the worker shortage when Omicron was at its peak, where people couldn't go to work and businesses were having to close because their workers were sick. Hospitals were unbelievably short-staffed during Omicron. Whole wards were shutting down because there weren't enough nurses. They were homesick with Omicron. The reality is here, whether you isolate or not, or whether you quarantine or not, I think you have to use your head. Now, all of you on this call are intelligent people. So know that if I have symptoms and I'm positive, I'm shedding this thing. If my viral test is positive, I am shedding this thing. I should stay away from other people if I can. And I certainly should have a mask on. If I've been exposed but not positive yet, not a bad idea to put a mask on. Get the test at 4 to 5 days. Remember those antigen tests. If I'm exposed today is whatever, Tuesday, and I'm exposed today, my antigen test is probably not going to be positive for 3 to 5 days. 5 days is the best window. So I'm going to put my mask up. I get coughed on today, or I get a call from a friend saying, we had dinner the other day. I'm so sorry, I'm positive. My mask goes on today, and I test day 5. I wear my mask around other people between now and then. That's my quarantining. I don't stay home. I'm vaccinated. I'm going to go ahead and go out and about, but I'm going to have my mask on so I don't get anybody else infected. It truly is logical. It's not rocket science. This is logical stuff. So quarantining and isolation, it makes sense how to do this if you think about what's happening in your body. Now, one of the really cool things that is relatively new is treatment. And we have treatments. But I will tell you one thing about treatments. You are going to have to be your own advocate for this. I'm doing a lot of lectures right now on treatments for physicians who have no idea how these things work, have no idea how to access them, really don't want to prescribe them because they're complicated to prescribe. You are going to have to be your own advocate. And if you don't want to advocate for yourself, find someone who will. Find a physician friend who will. Find one of those people that's one of those, like dog that bites the bone and won't let go. Friends that will get on the phone and call and call and call. Because these all have windows of time that you need to use them, and otherwise you can't. It's symptom positive, high risk for most of these, and you have a short window, 5 to 7 days for these things. There are various choices out there. You need to get medical information from a medical provider. And I will tell you, if you call your primary care provider and they say, well, I don't think you really need it, but you're 75 years old, or you have some sort of blood cancer like leukemia, or you are morbidly obese, and you should have lost some weight, and darn, I wish I'd done it up until now and I didn't. If you know you're in a high risk category and your doctor says, I don't think you need it, push back. That's wrong. Now, you may not be able to use it because there are lots of contraindications to some of these meds, but please know they're out there. They are incredibly effective, especially Paxlovid. And if you are someone who is already very immunocompromised, I have a friend who just got a heart transplant. It's been waiting for it for a really long time. It has been the most joyful time right now, except is on immunosuppressive drugs now for probably ever, and needed a medicine called Evusheld, which is actually antibodies that he's not going to respond well to the vaccines anymore. So he gets this medicine that protects him from giving him antibodies ahead of time. So there are medicines out there, and the key is to get educated, or talk to your doctor, or talk to someone who gives you answers. Doesn't just say, oh, well, I don't think you need it. Don't. And there, by the way, the CDC has great information on this. I'll tell you the best place if you want information on this is the NIH. Go to the NIH COVID treatment guidelines page. It has a 1-page summary of anything you would want to know about whether you would qualify and whether these meds are something you should be looking into. Do know, in general, these meds are meant for high-risk people, which actually, technically, if you look at all the definition, is probably a third of the population of the United States, and early in symptoms in proven positive cases. So it's not just, I think I have it. You have to test positive, and you have to have symptoms. You can't just be test positive. You have to have symptoms. But I'll tell you, these are for people that, boy, I'm high risk and I got this thing, and oh my gosh, I'm really worried. Well, this can take the worry away. So these medicines are out there. It's just everyone's learning about them. Physicians are, it's complicated. It's kind of hard to figure these out. And from a prescribing standpoint, certainly not impossible. We do a lot of complicating prescribing on other things. It's just a matter of everybody getting on board. And you're going to have to be your own advocate in this in some cases. So is it over yet? The answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if someone says it's over, it's not. It doesn't mean, though, that we have to go back to sitting in our houses twiddling our thumbs. That is absolutely not the case. You all are proof of that. You're traveling. You're going all over the place. You're planning traveling. It is just a new normal, and it has to be a new normal. It is not just, oh, whatever. There are people in our communities who will never be safe from this virus. We need to keep that in mind when we make our decisions on how we kind of go about this thing. So the reality with this virus is it is not an on-off switch. It's not it's here and then it's gone. Zero COVID is never going to happen. This thing is going to be part of our lives going forward. It is just too ubiquitous. And now it's in the animal population. So it's going to come back to us. It's just going to be around. It's going to be like measles and mumps, and they're around. Polio is around. Where all of the efforts that you all have made that have been extraordinary with eradicating polio, it's still around certain places. So the reality is this is not an on-off switch. It's a rheostat. And we have to be aware as case numbers go up, like they are pretty much across the country right now, or they are in South Africa right now with different variants. We're just going to have to keep an eye out. So what's going to happen coming down the line? I will tell you, I am sick to death of hearing experts say, this is what's going to happen in the fall. We're out of the woods. It's all over. Just everything with a grain of salt here, because people who said that last November when we were coming out of Delta, which was such a bloody nightmare, I have to tell you from a healthcare provider standpoint, it was a nightmare. Everybody was like, phew, you're going to have a great Christmas. Oh no, oh no, no, no. Omicron, which we didn't even hear about in the beginning of November. We all know what happened with Omicron, and it basically infected half the US population. So as far as going forward, there are only a few things that I can tell you as far as trends and things to know that we're going to have to kind of just deal with. We have to face it. It just is reality. You can't ignore it. It just is what it is. So first of all, it is not the flu. There is absolutely 100% data. This is not the flu. The flu does not give you long flu. It doesn't give you a higher risk of heart attacks and a higher risk of strokes and a higher risk of diabetes and a higher risk of brain fog, an earlier risk of dementia. This virus does. So this is not just the flu. And if you think about the number of people who have died of COVID, we just crossed the 1 million person mark. On our low dates, we are having 250 to 300 people a day die of COVID. That translates to about 300,000 people on a good time during COVID. We lose 60 to 70,000 people a year to flu. We're going to lose, at this rate, we're going to lose 250,000 minimum a year to COVID. So this is not the flu on any level. And if somebody got lucky and all they had was what they thought was, allergies, good for them. They should count their blessings. But they are just at risk. They are absolutely still at risk of long COVID, even having had that. So this just is not the same as the flu. And it is a virus we need to respect without question. In the United States, we may be in for a bumpy ride as this thing develops sort of cyclical patterns, which it probably will. It looks like we're going to have cyclical surges. I hate that word. I wish we had a new word, but we're going to have cyclical increases in number in the South when it's hot because people are driven inside with air conditioning, and in the North when it's cold because they're driven inside to get warm. So we're going to see summer sort of increases in numbers, and we're going to see winter increases in numbers. And will this ever even out to a flat line kind of thing, like now we see with measles or polio, like this baseline background noise? Will it ever happen? I think this is going to end up more like the flu as far as cyclical patterns. So that is, and I think that's a reasonable prediction looking at the virology data and the epidemiology data so far, if it stays like this in the Omicron family. For us in the United States, though, we're going to have a bumpy ride. So the United States, the UK, and the EU have really high cumulative death rates from this thing for a lot of different reasons. Compared to places like South Korea or Australia or Japan, we have really, it's kind of astonishingly high cumulative mortality rates on these things. And there's a lot of reasons why for this. A huge part of this is a lack of trust in science, a lack of trust in government, a lack of trust in public health, compared to the other countries where there is a higher degree of trust. Testing, vaccinations, et cetera. We just don't have quite as much here. And that is our playing field. That is sort of what it is here in the United States. So we need to factor that in going forward. And one of the big things that will continue to contribute to the mortality, this 250 to 300 people a day, is the fact that we just are not as vaccinated as even some of our brethren in Europe are. This is primary vaccine rates, the primary series. We're even worse when it comes to boosters. So the reality is you get some protection from all of this for sure. And if we aren't up to date on our vaccines, we will see breakthroughs that do go on to really get people hospitalized and maybe even increase death rates. So for you going forward, how do you live your life? We've kind of decided this is you're on your own, a yo-yo thing when it goes going forward with this. So how do you live your life? And the things you're going to have to factor into everything you do going forward, and honestly, whether you like it or not, this is just what it is, right? I pay my taxes, I pay my bills, or they cut off my electricity. I put on my seatbelt because I know it makes me safer. All these things are things we've integrated into our lives. This is just another thing we're going to integrate. And you're going to have to think about things like, where I go, what's the ventilation? How long am I going to be there? What's the local COVID incidence? Am I at a risk? Am I going to be around somebody at risk? What's the vaccination rate where I'm going? That sort of thing. It's really honestly is knowing some data and then applying common sense. So my personal approach to everything going forward. I have trips planned, I have theater tickets, I've got concert tickets, I've got it all sort of out there. I'm not going to sit here in my house forever, but I'm going to do it in a way that I think minimizes my risk and the risk to the people I love around me. The way I plan to do that, and this is just my own formula, you can decide your own, is first of all, I do mask indoors. I still mask indoors. People can call me an idiot. I don't care. If I happen to have it and give it to somebody sitting next to me whose kid is in chemo and they take it back to that kid, I may not know that, but I would feel terrible. I'm going to make sure I have a minimum risk of giving it to other people. So I'm going to mask everywhere I go. Helps me, and it helps me from giving it to other people. At least I have one part of the two-part sort of communication system here of the virus. At least one part I put a barrier in place. So I mask indoors. I check everywhere I go before I go what the infection rates are locally. I check what the hospital bed available is there. So just in case, if I not only got COVID, but say I get hit by a car or say I have a heart attack, I'd kind of like to know that their ERs are completely overwhelmed and their ICU beds that they have some. So I check local infection rates, hospital bed availability, and I check whether the local, I find wherever I'm going to stay, I find where that hotel is, and then going on the web, you can find all this on the web, find which pharmacies around where I'm going to be staying have the medicines that I might need if I do get this thing, because I'm high risk by age. These things are all available. So I'm going to New York in June. I already have all the sort of, I know which pharmacies are there. I'm going to follow the infection rate. I'm watching New York closely. And I'm going to check what the local bed availability is to make sure there's an ICU bed. I'm going to see what my activities are. So for instance, if you go to Hawaii and you're outside all the time, you're good to go. This thing just, as long as you are around where there's good ventilation and you're not like coughing in each other's face, the reality is getting this outdoors is really low. So that's cool. But if I'm going to be inside and I'm going to be extended periods in something like, oh, let's say a correspondence dinner with 2,500 people in an underground ballroom where there's no masking, that's a different story. You're going to have to decide if that's what you want to be doing as far as your activity. And then I'm also going to factor in the likelihood of someone at risk, either in my group or to whom I may take it if I go home infected. You know, if I have my friend with a heart transplant, I am not going to go see my friend with a heart transplant until I've been home for a minimum of 5 days and I test negative after I travel anywhere, because I would never want to take this to my friend who's had a heart transplant. So all of these things factor into my travel, and I take testing with me. I take tests with me, and this is totally up to you, but this is sort of how I've come to my comfort zone in living my life the best way I can without hurting other people or getting infected myself the best way I can. So to wrap, crystal balls, nobody has one. Could a new variant come out tomorrow that is more lethal? It's possible. And I will tell you, one of the myths out there is that viruses always evolve to be less lethal. That is actually not true. I wish it were true. The good news with so far with this, though, is that this virus seems to have fallen into if you look at virology data, there are trees. It's like a family tree. It's just like a family tree. And there was the delta part of this family tree of this virus developing. And that kind of has died off, which is kind of cool because Omicron has taken over. It's so infectious. And it seems to be just branching out of Omicron. It hasn't sent off some brand new crazy variant yet. It's all just little ditsily things it's doing within Omicron. We will hopefully stay there and it won't do some ditsily change that makes it more lethal. So far, so good. We're going to cross our fingers on this. But again, we all have to be vigilant and just be careful and know that this is a rheostat, not an on-off switch. So this crazy roller coaster will continue. And hopefully it's going to go to smaller and smaller ups and downs. And we have more information and treatment and we can live a more reasonable life, sort of a more quote normal life, but it will never be, at least not for the foreseeable future, like it was before 2020, before the end of 2019. But it doesn't mean that we have to stay home, and it doesn't mean we can't have family gatherings and weddings, and we certainly can. We just have to do it in an educated fashion. So we are still building this plane while we're flying it. It has more parts on it now than it used to. It's not a complete airplane, but it has wings and it has a nose and seats and a tube that we're flying it. We have a lot of information about it now. We don't have all of it, but we're getting there. And we'll see, things change. So I really want to answer any questions you might have. I hope that gives you updates on sort of where we are at the moment. And if you have any questions, I will stick around as long as you need me. I'll stay here.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane, for this very informative update. We've got a bunch of hands up, and I do have a question as well. Let me go ahead and ask mine. I've already been boosted once. I've already gotten my COVID during the Omicron area. How likely, do you have any stats of how likely I would get COVID now?
So I'm going to give you a sort of caveats answer to that. So the new variant that has taken over New York, that hasn't really taken over in California, but it is 20% of our cases. People who have had Omicron before, the first version, BA1, which is what took us all over in December, are getting this a second time. But they're not getting it as often as someone who didn't get Omicron. So for instance, I didn't get Omicron when Omicron came through. I'm triple vaxxed, now quadruple vaxxed. I don't have that extra boost that you might have from having had Omicron. I just have my vaccine sort of boosting. So could you get this again? The answer is yes. What will happen? And I will tell you the problem with this whole virus, it makes it, the thing that makes it the hardest for me as far as making decisions is that long haul COVID, which we're learning about more and more. It's not completely defined yet, but there are certain things we absolutely know happen to some people after COVID. Every time you get it, there's a risk that we don't really know. The risk from Omicron. We know the risk from Alpha. We know the risk from Delta. We are not sure yet the risk from Omicron. It really hasn't been around long enough to know how many people are going to go on to get long COVID. The preliminary data is a little bit hopeful, preliminary data. So what factors into your can you get it again is if you get it again, are you at risk of long COVID? The answer is yes. The question is how much of that. So this idea that maybe you can just, you're done and whatever, we don't really know yet. So I wish I could tell you you're not going to get it. I wish I could tell you that if you do, you're all good to go. It's going to be fine. I can't tell you that yet. And again, we're only 26 months into this. So we're still getting information. So I wish I could give you a great answer to that, but I can't tell you you're home free.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's go to Bob Herman.
Hi, thank you very much for a terrific conversation. I'm a former UCSF retiree, and I was reading about Dr. Bob Wachters' article today, and his wife got it. And
she's getting better, but she's got Paxlovid on board.
Right,
yeah. Actually, he was my chief resident when I was there, so I've known Bob a long time.
Oh, great, great. So Dan and I just did travel. We're about to do travel again. We carry our masks. We are quadruple vaccinated. We do know people who did get COVID who were like 2 vaccinations plus booster. They didn't have their 4th one. And so we've been testing furiously. I have my little matrix here of all the tests that I'm doing every day, you know, just to make sure, because we don't want to go to a wedding, but we are going to a wedding where a subset is from Michigan and they are anti-vax. So we know that we're going to be amongst people that are of the unvaccinated population. So we will have our masks, unfortunately. My question, though, however, is I'm a community service chair with our club for another 2 months, and we do events. Should I make sure that people continue to wear masks or have masks as an option? And should we limit the sizes that we have done in the past and continue to do that for the next 2 months?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So let me answer. So a couple things. The people that this wedding, indoors, please wear a mask. That seems to be the situations the most where there's sort of the mixed population, the much higher risk of having the virus, anti-vaccinated group, especially if they come from high infection areas. So if they're where they live, they may be very much bringing it to you at the wedding. So please be careful. And outdoors, I don't think it makes a difference, honestly, unless they're really in your face. But indoors, I would. And at this point, people can call me a million names. I just don't care anymore. It's, you know, I'm doing this for me and I'm doing this for you. And it's the only way I can live with myself. I don't even know how I would feel if I gave somebody this thing and they got really sick. So I do know how I would feel. So that's the wedding part. I would wear them indoors. As far as running events, I will tell you, this is one of the more challenging. I'm doing live conferences now, and running these events is just a nightmare because people are so polarized about this, and so they have such strong feelings about this. If you are really in charge and you can kind of handle the heat if somebody really has a fit about it, because it's not mandated anymore, the more masking, the better. In indoor settings, especially where ventilation may be a problem, the more masking, the better. And I think it's just respect of other people and not wanting to get them sick. But and limiting number of people, I don't think you have to limit the number of people. It's not a great idea to pack them in, But if you have space where people can mingle comfortably with some space, and you have tables where people can sit, some distance apart, it's not shoulder to shoulder, but some distance apart. I don't think you have to limit the numbers if you have some leeway in the actual physical space people can occupy. But I would really strongly urge masking.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff Lerner.
Thank you so much. How does the medical community and the data know what variant a person has? Like, my wife is at home with COVID. She just got it. We were traveling. She came back 2 days later. She wasn't feeling well. But I don't know, if I'm going to get it or how she got it or whatnot. She's upstairs and I haven't seen her in days, but how is that information getting through the medical community as to who has what, when, and how?
So variants are a public health and epidemiology and virology measure. They're really not a medical measure. It comes to us later. And variants are basically population sampling. Obviously, we don't know when people do antigen testing at home what their variant is, but they know what the variants are in wastewater testing, which is actually a remarkable technology. I have to tell you, it is a remarkable technology, and they will increase the number of wastewater testing sites dramatically, probably in the next 2 weeks, because a company just finally got a federal contract to do these things. So we'll have a lot of, and they do the genomic testing on wastewater to know what's what. That's how we know it's the majority. It's basically 2/3 of cases in New York, basically in the Northeast, and it's only 10 to 15% or 20% of cases here on the West Coast so far. The problem that you have is which one did she get if you were traveling? If you were in New York, odds are she picked up this sort of newer B1.2.1.1 is what it is. But so far we don't have the BA4 or 5 here in the United States that's happening in South Africa. Again, that's not our job to follow, because that's what epidemiologists and virologists do. They do keep track though, and it does make a difference, and it does trickle down to medical providers when it makes a difference in our care. So for instance, some of the antibodies that we used for Delta didn't work for Omicron, and some of the antibodies that we used for the first round of Omicron are not working for the second round of Omicron. It's more specific. It needs a different antibody. So that's why you heard, antibodies taken off the market, or FDA took away approval, because it doesn't work anymore. What we have now, it just doesn't work for. Why spend the money and increase, the risk of a medicine to somebody when it won't work? So this is data that is given to physicians through epidemiology and public health, that they're doing surveillance, which is why our public health departments are so important. It does make a difference in our care. She won't know, your wife won't know exactly which variant. It's just the odds of where she was, of which one she picked up. But the reality is we still do the same things as far as masking and isolating, et cetera, regardless of the variant. So some things are universal. Treatments may be a little different.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry, my video won't work.
That's okay. It did for a second. I got to see your face.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Birnbaumer, you said you can stick around for a little while.
I can stick around as long as you want to.
Perfect. It is 1:29, so I am going to end our meeting today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Please stay on the line if you'd like to continue hearing the answers to these questions, and also if you have one. And as a thank you gift for speaking to us again, we will be inoculating 100 children against polio in your name. So thank you once again.
That's fabulous.
All right, so that ends our meeting. It is 1:30. Let's go to Scott Plakin. He has a question for you.
Hey, Diane, thanks for another great talk. My question is, so we had pretty good confidence that we understood the shape of the curve for the first round of Omicron based on what had happened elsewhere in the world, that it would be a very sharp up and then a very sharp down, which is indeed what happened. Do we have any idea about what the shape of the current upswing is likely to be based on what's happening elsewhere?
Yes and no. So what we're finding internationally is a little bit of a divergence now in predictability from one area to the next. And it makes sense why. So areas of the world have had different vaccines. China has its own vaccine. There are different vaccines, and there's some places that aren't vaccinated hardly at all. Europe had AstraZeneca for a lot of their vaccines, and so there's combinations. So that's one big difference. And the other difference is that timing when they got their last wave and now their current waves has been a little different than ours. Our concentrated, really extraordinary infection rate in this country. I mean, to have more than half of this country infected with this thing, they face as high as 70%. And there is some residual immunity. It's not clear what this curve is going to be. It is clear that it's not going to be as much of as quick of an up. We don't know how much of an up, and we don't know how long total. It would be lovely to be able to say, I mean, I'm going to New York in 6 weeks. And it's like, I would love to be able to say, oh, I know by then it's going to be gone in New York, just like it was last time. I can't say that. I don't know that. And I think the main thing now is that there's some really great resources on the internet to look up sort of what's happening wherever you're going and have some idea of kind of your risks. And I think we're just going to have to factor that in going forward. And that's worldwide. There are places in the world right now that are incredibly safe. And there are places in the world right now I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. So you just have to be a little more vigilant when you travel.
Okay, terrific. Margaret has something that she put in the chat.
I saw that, actually. It's good to answer that because I hope she's still on the call.
Yes.
Margaret, so great question. And I almost addressed it in the lecture, but I want to make sure I didn't run over time. So the question is, I've had 3 doses of Pfizer. Is there any benefit for me to get Moderna as my 4th dose? Yes. So if you are a 3-dose of one of them, so you got 3 Modernas or you got 3 Pfizers. So for instance, I'm a 3 Pfizer gal. And I made sure that my 4th dose was Moderna. There are a couple of papers in the science literature that show that your immune response, and especially your longer lasting immune response, those memory B cells and T cells that you keep reading about, are better revved with better memory. Because those 2 vaccines aren't exactly the same. They took a little bit different bits and pieces of the spike protein to make each one a little different. So it turns out that I would cross it over for sure. In fact, my niece just texted me this morning and I was like, make sure you get the other one. It is worth crossing that over. I wouldn't go to J&J. It's just sad. Oh, and the other thing, as long as you're still on the call, there will be at least 1 and probably 2 new vaccines available to Americans within probably 3 to 4 months. Both of them are the more traditional formulation of vaccines, the kind of like they're like the hepatitis B vaccine, where if people are hesitant about this, I don't want this new technology, it will make, if you're more comfortable with it, they're both effective. They both are now on the FDA's table. So keep an ear out for this. And we may find going forward, as far as like trying to crystal ball this, that mixing vaccines from like the mRNA plus one of the others may, again, I don't know yet, but may prove to be the most protection. But right now, what we have the best is the mRNA, and do please cross them over. You get a little more bang for your buck.
Thank you so much. Excellent.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that. Kausha.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. It was a really great talk, informative and a lot of clarity. Since we've started traveling international, and you alluded a little bit of international scene, what do we not know compared to Chinese? Why are they going for zero tolerance policy, which is affecting like millions and millions of people? It is a very scary scenario.
I have no idea why anyone tries to do zero COVID anymore. The window we had to try to zero COVID anywhere in this planet is gone. It is gone. I think one of the reasons it's happening in places like China is because they can. I mean, there's no place that isn't a country where the government can really tell you what to do and lock you up if you don't do it. I mean, most of the countries in the world don't do that. Why China is doing this to the detriment of their people and clearly to the detriment of the world economy, I don't know. Just as an aside, the detriment to the world economy is extraordinary. And in healthcare, we're feeling it a big way. A bunch of medicines that we use all the time, we can't get now, including IV contrast. So the thing when you get your CT scan that we give to you so that we can see things better, or that you get when you get your cardiac cath, we have a 1-week supply nationwide. Nationwide. This will last until the end of June because they've locked down Shanghai. It's all produced in Shanghai. So this idea that zero COVID and locking things down and shutting down economies is a good idea when it doesn't work, and all it does is harm. I find it extraordinary that this is being done. It just isn't. I think China is very tied to their vaccines, which don't work very well at all, actually, at all. They're really locked into that, and they're not working. So I don't know if it's saving face. I'm not sure what is happening, but it's just not an accomplishable goal. And that's a very good question, and it's affecting everything.
Yeah, and because when you're traveling internationally, the most scary time when you go to the airport and 1 hour, there's 1 hour test. During that 1 hour, you're wondering that if I find positive, and then what I have to do is very scary, right? That's why you have to know the country.
It is, and pardon me, it's one of the things for all of you that are traveling internationally, and you all are, and good for you. Boy, make sure you know what the rules are in the country where you're going and what the rules are back here to get back in, and that may change. Just know what those are and have contingency plans. Know that you might be testing positive the day you're supposed to leave and come home, and that's going to lock you in for X amount of time. And that has to get we factor everything into travel. Like, what if my suitcase doesn't get there? I might have a little extra, I have my carry-on bag with my medicines and a change of clothes. Well, now you're going to have to factor in, I may end up having to stay a while where I'm going if I end up testing positive. It just kind of is what it is at the moment. We'll see what happens over time, but you're absolutely right. It is part of what you factor in now into travel.
Thank you.
All right, Sally.
This question may be redundant, but I have a friend who got COVID, and she came to visit in my home, and I had my mask on. She said, well, you don't really need to wear your mask. I'm really safe. And I kind of scratched my head. With somebody with COVID who's had COVID, is that a dangerous thing to be around them? And should you be wearing a mask, or even if you're outside in the garden, or what are the directives?
So can I clarify one thing? Was she like recovered from COVID? She had it.
She's recovered, yeah.
Okay. So a couple things to know about that. No one is safe from picking up the virus again. Nobody. I don't care if you're vaccinated. I don't care if you've had COVID before. What having had the virus before or getting vaccinated is good for is keeping you from getting really sick with it. But I can carry the virus as a 4 times vaccinated person, be asymptomatic, and give it to you. A person who's had COVID, even just 2 months ago with this new variant that's coming around, can get it again, be minimally symptomatic, think it's just allergies, and give it to you. So part of this is, again, just especially with a friend, where you can say, here's what I understand about this virus. Actually, here are the facts about this virus. And for me to feel comfortable and I want to spend time with you, would you please be willing to wear your mask? And this has led to, I have like a group of friends now that are all in on being safe. And I have another group of friends that are like, I don't want to do it. It's like, okay, well then here are the kind of events I can do with you. And here are the kind of events I can do with you. Like you that won't wear masks, we can hang out inside. You that won't wear masks, I'll meet you at the beach. So and that way you can still be in touch with people who have very different, or at least had different levels of concern than you do, and still have friendships that thrive.
Thank you.
Okay, Anne.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
I've heard that there may be some oral vaccination things coming up and coming. Do you have any read on that?
So there are oral vaccines in the works, but not anywhere near FDA level. But I will tell you what is coming down the pike that's even more exciting than that are nasal vaccines. So the nasal vaccines, there is one that I'm aware of. By the way, the New York Times has a fantastic site for where COVID, what's happening with all vaccines COVID. That just Google coronavirus vaccine tracker, New York Times, and it has amazing information. But the nasal vaccines, I think, are going to be the game changer here. It will, what the parenteral, the shot vaccines don't do is give you a certain kind of antibody in your nose that prevents it even from getting into you in the first place. These nasal vaccines do. It's called IgA. It's just a specific kind of antibody. And if these things work the way it looks like they do, and I'll tell you, the data is very exciting. This may be that combined with something parenteral like a shot. So a nasal vaccine plus a shot, I can't get it in my nose. And if I do happen to get it, I'm not going to get that sick, may really be what changes this going forward. And I would really keep an eye out for that. And they will 99% be something you could add on to what you have already, the way it looks like the testing is going.
Okay, great.
Hey,
thank you.
Doesn't look like anybody else online has a question, but I do have a question.
I have a question.
Who is that? Who's raising
Anita.
their hand? Oh, Anita. Okay, Anita, go ahead.
My question is on what you were just saying about a new vaccine coming out in the fall. I just received my second booster, my fourth shot. How soon can you have this this new vaccine that might be able to really help you through the winter, especially if you're somewhat compromised?
Exactly. So I'll tell you what I think is going to be on the table as far as decision making for us in the fall. So one of them is vaccinating children. So the kids' vaccines, I think, will probably be approved the end of next month, and parents are going to have to make some decisions there. The other thing is they are probably going to add to the mRNA vaccine choices a combined vaccine that includes more than one strain of COVID. Right now, we only have the original strain in the vaccine. They will have one that has at least 2 strains. It's kind of interesting which ones, but the reality is it will probably give us better protection, and that may replace the booster option in the mRNA pool. The third thing that may happen in the fall is these other vaccines, these sort of traditional type, technology kinds of vaccines. I will tell you, I'm going to wait on those personally until I see data that shows what happens to people who combine the 2 different types. Is it helpful? Is it harmful? This is going to have to be tested before I'm going to get on that bandwagon personally. So I would be careful jumping on any new bandwagon until data is out there for safety as well as efficacy. And that's one of the, it's so tempting because I think most of us don't want this thing and don't, if it, it's like, I want it. And if you're immunocompromised, it's scarier. But I would be careful jumping on any bandwagon without, and please feel free, I will send my email out to email me if you have any questions, because my job is to keep up on this stuff. And I'll let you know. And I mean, my husband and I were trying to time our 4th vaccine. I mean, we try to make our educated decisions here. And one of the things is to make sure it is safe for you in addition to having some efficacy. The mRNA vaccines right now are pretty great.
Thank you so much, and thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Oh, I'm so happy it was helpful. I really
cleared up stuff.
Great, thank you.
Sally, did you have another question? Because your hand is still up.
I had a question.
Okay, go ahead, John.
How important, because we hear so much on the media, and your advice and the presentation was very good. How important it is to communicate with your personal physician as to what you should take and when you should take it. I've been vaccinated twice. I have a booster, and I'm 70 years old. So, but I like to keep in touch and get my physician's advice before I listen to media or anyone else talking out.
So I will tell you my my current thoughts on primary care providers, having given the talk on how to use these medicines and how to prescribe them, et cetera, to the medical aspect of this to primary care providers right now, is a lot of them are not on board yet, or it hasn't really crossed their practice in any degree yet, but it is starting for sure. Their patients are getting COVID. Like, you might call your primary care doctor, and you may be the 5th person this week who calls your primary care doctor saying, I'm 70 and I have it and I'm symptomatic. I think the only thing that I absolutely trust your primary care doctor, with the exception of if your primary care doctor said, well, John, I don't think you need this drug. You're 2 days into your symptoms, your test is positive, but you're a healthy 70-year-old. I don't think you need it. Ask why they think you don't need it, because you are in the group that actually got the most benefit from this particular medicine as far as keeping you out of the hospital and keeping you from dying. Now, your vaccines do a lot of the work for you, but this adds on to that to keep you extra protected. So I think if you trust your primary care doctor, that is the most important thing out there. But skepticism and a little bit of questioning is always worthwhile, always worthwhile. So asking a question of your primary care doctor to say, can you explain why, as a 70-year-old, because I kind of read, I was in a high-risk group, why you think it's not useful for me to get some sort of treatment. And if they can explain it to your satisfaction, that's all fine. But please push a little bit to get answers on this. These medicines are complicated to prescribe. I'll tell you, Paxlovid is extremely complicated to prescribe. And there are some people who cannot take it. because of the medicines that they're on. They just cannot take it. But there are solutions to that in some cases. And so I think physicians are balking a little bit because this is a really complicated medicine to prescribe. But it's not impossible by any stretch.
Oh, no, thank you. But I trust my primary.
Perfect.
I'm with Kaiser. Perfect. And I know they've done a lot of research.
They have.
So he has also. And so that would be my first go-to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think it's just a good, no matter COVID or not, whatever your medical care is, to get answers as to the whys, not just this is what I recommend, but that's what I teach residents is the whys, so that they can explain the why to someone when they're giving advice.
Mm-hmm. All right. Scott has his hand up again.
Yeah, less a question, more a comment. I have run through all of my specialists. I have a number of comorbidities. So I already know if I have to start taking Paxlovid, who to ask the prescription, and which drugs I should keep taking, which drugs I should stop taking.
Awesome.
So I already know that, right? So that's not stuff I'd want to be trying to figure out if I didn't feel well, right? So if you've got comorbidities, do the research now.
That's true. And the other thing to do is get a renal function test in your records.
Yeah.
Get a kidney function test in your records now. That's relatively recent. Something a year ago we may not use. So get a recent kidney function and probably liver function test. But you're absolutely I'll tell you, doing that footwork ahead of time is brilliant. It's worth asking, because if you know ahead of time, I'm not someone who qualifies at all because the medicines I'm on I can't stop. Then there are other options.
Okay. My question is, you talked about long COVID.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
So we're learning about long COVID. So it seems to be two kind of categories of timing. So one long COVID is people that just say really the initial symptoms they have hang on for a while. So I'm fatigued, I have fevers, I'm a little bit short of breath, I just don't have my energy back. And instead of being better in a week to 10 days, they are sick for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. That's one version of long COVID. And that's what sort of started this. There seems to, and that, by the way, is a lot of people. That's about 30% of people who get symptomatic COVID have some sort of symptom ongoing, even as long as 3 to 6 months later. The second group, and this is the group that we're learning about because now we've had COVID around for 26 months, is the group that ends up with permanent organ problems. Anything from the brain fog, which also puts you at increased risk of early dementia. It looks like there are brain changes we can actually see on MRI in people, to increased risk of diabetes, which we absolutely know an increased risk of type 2 diabetes is associated with even minimally symptomatic COVID, increased risk of clotting, strokes, heart attacks. Those are long COVID problems that are measurable, that are still pretty substantial numbers of people. We're dealing in sort of the 5% range, 2 to 5%. And if you were sicker, you were more likely to have these things, but not being sick didn't mean you weren't going to get it. So it's one of those things that that's why getting it at all, you just prefer not to do. So we're learning about long COVID. There are now, for instance, Cedars-Sinai here in Southern California, and I'm sure UCSF has a long COVID center of people that are specializing in this, measuring things, doing research, trying to figure out why. Can we fix this? How do we fix this? Is there something we can actually do for this or not? And there's some interesting things happening and some hopeful things happening, but we're just learning to outline this thing. And it's sort of like chronic fatigue syndrome that everyone gave all kinds of, hassle to, where some people with chronic fatigue syndrome were depressed, but some people had real things like medical things we could measure. And it was hard because the symptoms were vague. And that's one of the problems with long COVID. So everyone learned from chronic fatigue that there are absolutely people that have measurable problems with chronic fatigue. And we're learning the same thing with COVID, that this I'm fatigued at 8 months in may very well be a significant problem that we just have to learn how to measure.
Oh, wow. Okay. And just to reiterate what you said in one of the questions, I had 3 Pfizer vaccines. So you recommend I do the Moderna.
I do. That's what I did.
All right.
That's why I got this swelling in my armpit.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make my appointment on that before I go anywhere.
And for the women on the call, if you have a mammogram scheduled 6 weeks after your vaccine,
Okay.
It's most of the radiologists are all over this, but it does, like this lymph node I have in my armpit. It's one of the things they look for on mammograms is lymph nodes. So unless you have an urgent reason to have a mammogram in that window of time, just wait a minimum of 6 weeks after your vaccine to get your mammogram done.
Okay, good tip. All right, anybody else have any questions? This is your last opportunity.
I'm your captive audience, go for it.
And is your hand up again? Yes. Oh, you're muted.
This may be a little redundant, but I had Moderna twice, then I had Pfizer, then I had the second Moderna. Should I throw in the other, when the other product? No?
You're good. As long as you get one dose of the other one, you're good. It's especially, so the first two should be the same.
Yeah.
The third or fourth can be either.
Gotcha. Okay.
And an extra, like a fifth right now, there's no, we don't even know what a fifth would do.
Gotcha. Okay.
Pardon me.
What a
wrong tube.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Fabulously interesting.
Oh, good.
Ada.
Very quickly, Diane, thank you so much. I feel very privileged to be here today because this is so informative and I can't believe the amount of information that we got from you today. Where is the best place to gather this type of information that we can share with friends and family and also a job so that people can learn more and understand that even though you're vaccinated, you can still spread COVID to other people. I feel like, I've been for the past 2 years, the most reluctant one to remove my mask and to go indoors with other people. And I find at this point, it's just so hard and it's become so hard, right? Because everybody thinks that I'm overprotective and I'm not living my life the way I should be and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the pressure comes from family and friends. And it's just like, I wish there was a place I could send them because I feel like I shouldn't be the one trying to educate them because everybody has their own opinion.
Right. So the best place, honestly, and I'm going to say this with a little bit of trepidation, is the CDC website. The reason I have trepidation is because the CDC has taken a lot of hits during this whole pandemic, and some earned, and a lot honestly not. This has been an impossible thing to negotiate with the political overlay. So it is still the best place to get information on this. The other place is the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. They also have some nice one-page summaries to basically explain things to people. And stick to your guns. So right now, we've decided this is a choice. And you have made yours, and people need to respect each other's choices. So please stick to your guns. It is completely fine to do what you're doing. And if they choose to do something different, that's their choice as well. But we need to learn to respect each other now that we've decided it's everybody, it's a free for all. So we need to learn to respect each other. And I would just ask your friends to please respect your choices and quit talking about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit here in this room as the only person with a mask on and oh, well, my book club, we did that. We had one person that just thinks it's silly and she didn't, and the rest of us did. We didn't give her grief for being an idiot. We basically, just all respected each other. And we just have to demand respect at this point. We've become so uncivil. It's time to quit that. Especially, I love your motto. I mean, the motto of the Rotarians, we should tattoo it on people's heads, It's like, don't say something unless it's nice,
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was very, very informative.
Yes, this was an excellent presentation. Thank you again so much for joining us.
My pleasure. And
I'm sure everybody's going to want, hopefully we don't need to have you back with COVID, you're always so informed, and the information on how you present it, it's in plain English where I can't even understand it. So I really appreciate you spending even extra time
My
coming.
pleasure. And please
coming here and sharing with
share
us.
the video with anyone and everyone. I mean, I don't know, feel free to use it for non-Rotarians as well. I don't care.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if it's something that for the Rotary Club, if you want to share it with your friends and the people that don't want to wear masks or don't understand they can still shed the virus, please just feel free. It's like, whatever,
Okay.
I don't care.
All right, terrific. So Ada, I'll share the link and you can share it with your family and friends so they understand.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I'll definitely be sharing what I learned today with my family and friends too. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You guys all have a great week. I'll see you next week. And Anne, I'll give you a call in a few minutes, okay? All right. Bye-bye, everybody.